Okay, so thus far, Stace has given us the context for what he's writing about. He has told us why it is important to talk about free will relevant to a larger work. He has articulated what he thinks is the real problem about the topic for this work. He has told us what the solution to this problem is. He's given us an example, an obvious example to understand the true nature of the problem and its solution, and he has mapped the true nature of the problem and its solution to the topic, which is the debate about free will and its compatibility with determinism and people's views about that. And so, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to transition to what is going to be called the solution part of his discussion here. So, let's go ahead and pick up here with paragraph 6. Of course, there is a sense in which one can define a word arbitrarily in any way one pleases, but a definition may nevertheless be called correct or incorrect. It is correct if it accords with the common usage of the word defined. It is incorrect if it does not. So you might write a note over here that Stace is telling us how to determine whether a definition is correct or incorrect. He goes on to say, and if you give an incorrect definition, absurd and untrue results are likely to follow. For instance, there is nothing to prevent you from arbitrarily defining a man as a five-legged animal, but this is incorrect in the sense that it does not accord with the ordinary meaning of the word. So what he's using is kind of a common sense, common usage approach to deciding whether a definition is correct and hence whether we should accept the conclusion about there being a referent or an instance or something that we can point to in reality that aligns with said definition. Interestingly enough, there are things that are called lexical definitions. Lexical definitions are things that are given to you in dictionaries, and they go by they go by what is taken to be how people commonly use a word. And so that's what he tells us we need to appeal to is lived experience and how we actually use words, how we actually use language. So then he goes on to say, also it has, he said, also it has the absurd result of leading to the denial of the existence of man. So this shows, right? So this is actually conclusion, right? That common usage is the criterion for deciding whether a definition is correct or not. And this is the principle which I shall apply to free will. And really what I would do here is I would put quotation marks around free will because that is the term he wants to focus on. I shall show that indeterminism, indeterminism, remember, is the idea that not everything has a cause, right? Indeterminism basically is the opposite of the thesis of universal causation. It's the opposite of what I'm calling metaphysical determinism, is not what is meant by the phrase free will as it is commonly used, as I shall attempt to discover the correct definition, and I shall attempt to discover the correct definition by inquiring how the phrase is used in ordinary conversation. So what is the point of this paragraph again? It's to let us know how it is that we go about deciding whether a definition is correct or incorrect, right? And he gives us the standard for doing that at the end. And what I would do is I would underline this shows that common usage is the criterion, the standard, if you will, by deciding whether a definition is correct or not. And then he goes on. So I would underline that part. So he's citing the standard or principle or criterion by which he'll decide whether a definition is correct or not. And of course, he's talking about free will specifically. And that's what he tells us right after that. Okay, so if we were to look at words that name fundamental and powerful concepts, what would they be in this paragraph? Well, we would definitely highlight define, put a triangle over define, word, right? Definition, correct, incorrect, correct again, common usage, that would be a two-word name for an important important concept being used, word defined, incorrect again, incorrect definition would be a word phrase that names another important concept, absurd, untrue results would be another important phrase. What else would we want? Defining, incorrect, accord, and then ordinary meaning. That would be another two-word phrase that names a fundamental and powerful concept in how he's dealing what he's calling the problem with free will and the true nature of the debate. Then, of course, absurd, common usage, the phrase again is important. Criterion, so he's using the concept of a criterion. Look, if we're going to make a decision about whether something's correct or incorrect, like a definition, then we need a standard, a rule. We need a basis by which to do so. The idea is that we want to try to be objective. So criterion turns out to be a really important concept he's using at this moment. And then again, definition, correct or not. Just correct. Principle, that's another name for criterion. So go ahead and underline principle, knowing that it's another word for naming the same concept that is named by the word criterion, and then free will, and then again, determinism, free will. Here, common usage, just a different way of saying the same thing, but again, you want to note it. And then correct definition, and then again, go ahead and do ordinary conversation, because that's just another way of saying common usage.